starting today, we're going to look at the lead generation model. Now, we look at the economic model first because we have to kind of, know where we're going. It's kind of a roadmap on the numbers, but everything starts with leads. So the lead generation model works synergistically with the economic model. And lead generation is the key to mind share. So there's a graph on page 134. And you could take a look at that. It's also described here. Well, page 134 would have that. The three key areas of the lead generation model: prospect and marketing, page 136, setting up a database and feeding it, page 142, and systematically marketing to it. Can anybody, just to keep it interactive, feel free to speak up, ask questions, throw something in the chat if you like. Can anybody tell me the difference, or tell me the difference between prospect and marketing? What's prospecting?
Lead generation.
Yes, both lead generation. Prospecting, it's touched on, I think, at the top of page 138. Prospecting, you're really finding them, right? Marketing, you're marketing and advertising yourself so that people can find you. So that's the slight difference there. A database, there's a page 142. There's a graph there showing actually how to build a database. Actually, it's 141. That's the referral generation, and we'll look at some of that today. We'll touch on the other systematic parts of the 8x8, the 33 touch, and the 12 direct. But starting on page 133, I love this graph here on this table on page 138. It breaks down the two activities of prospecting and marketing. Notice that they're both proactive, right? They're both proactive activities. One's direct and one's indirect. I think what's really interesting to me is that there's really only two main prospecting methods, which is telemarketing and face-to-face. A lot of different things you can do under there, but again, it's human-to-human contact. The marketing side's also quite interesting, just how diverse it is, all the different things that come into this. Some of the broader categories of advertising and broadcasting, I think, are quite interesting. A lot of things in there that you'll recognize as common. Let me ask a question. What do you see that's missing on the marketing side? Something that we have now, but is missing since the original publication in 2003. What's missing from the right-hand side?
Social media.
Say again?
Social media.
That's exactly right. Social media. So whenever MREA 2 comes out, they will address that, but social media was, I guess, still in its infancy then. I guess I think of it as some kind of in between advertising and broadcasting. But it's interesting, and it's obviously a very important part of what we do today for lead generation. So we'll see more about that. That's one piece that the rest of this, all of this still holds true, but that's one piece I know that they'll come back and add to when they look at this next time around. Any other questions or observations around this table, this graph? It's on page 138. I'll tell you, this section, it's only a few pages here, really, from the 130s up to 151, but I'll be honest with you, I've gone back to read this probably 4 or 5 times, and it's just interesting to me. It took a little bit of time to sink in, and it continues to sink into me, how these activities actually tie together. And really, I'd say that if you can get this part right, if no other part of MREA, if you could get this part right, you got a heck of a chance at being highly successful in this business. You get this part right, and everything else will fall into place. You get the leads right, listings will fall into place. If you get leads and listings right, you'll have no choice but to get leverage in your business. So in the lead generation model, the goal is to become systematic and then to convert that system into automation. And we'll touch on that. The teams that can generate leads at high volumes and high levels consistently on an annual basis are the ones that can really produce the most. And that's true for the solo agent. If you just want to do 12 transactions a year, you need a 12-month prospecting and marketing-based system that's going to deliver those leads for you consistently for you to do that business, regardless of whether you're on vacation, regardless of seasonality. You never stop marketing. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more. So let's see here. Okay, so lead generation models. It's all about moving people to the middle of the circle, from the outer rings of this general public have not met people yet, to moving them in through prospecting and marketing. The target group, although they're people that you still have not met, you've targeted them as people that you want to work with. So these could be like your farm territories. They could be specific social circles or networks. But they're people you haven't met yet, but you know you want to meet them because of the area that they live in, or the opportunities and people that they can connect you with. As you work through that target group, we apply the 12 direct. We'll touch on that. There'll be a little bit more details around that. As you move into the MET group, so now we've actually, through the 12 direct, we've met them, and now we're following up. We're using the 8x8 to build a deeper relationship, and the 33 touch to stay in continuous contact with them. And you continue to move them inwards to your allied resources. And I don't think we have a graph on it here. Let's see. But it's on page 141. Let me just see here 1 second. I can pull that up and show you actually. Yeah, so this is the graph on page 141. Quite interesting. The three parts to building a strong allied resource referral generating program. Right there at the top, the three fundamental principles: treat the referral resource better than treat the referral source better than the referral. So always show appreciation at every point. When you take the referral phone call, when you meet with the referral, when you do business with them, and when the transaction is complete. There's 5 systems of referrals outlined here. We don't have to read through all of it, but I think you get the idea. Establishing a database, systematically, personally reaching out and touching them, following up. The follow-up is the key. A lot of times we make contact with people, have a great initial reaction and conversation, but maybe we don't follow up with them. Every day after that, the momentum is sort of going down, and you really want to keep that momentum up with those people. And these systems and these processes are meant to do that. Providing exceptional customer service and implementing a client appreciation program ties all of that back together. So these are the systems and the models to build around. If you have any questions or ideas, feel free to stop me. Anything so far? And certainly if you have a copy of your MREA with you, you can read along and look at this as well. If you don't have a copy, let me know and we'll get one to you. Starting with the 8x8, the 8x8 really is, the goal of the 8x8 is really to develop a deep personal relationship with someone that you just met. So your METs go into the 8x8 program first, and systematically you start to build rapport with them. The minimum here is 8 touches in 8 weeks. You could do longer. You could do maybe like a 12-week, but don't go less than 8 touches in 8 weeks. And here you have a general outline of what that could look like. Weeks 1 through 8, different letters, different collateral, and a few touches along the way. Here, phone calls. You could certainly incorporate social media into this. You can mix it up. Maybe you want to do like four touches, 4 pieces of information, 4 phone calls. But again, don't do less than 8 over 8 weeks. And again, this is about building the mind share, as touched on in the beginning. It's about building the mind share. The studies and everything that they've done show that most people only retain 1 to 2 real estate agents in their mind. That's based upon studies that they've done around how many agents people actually call. More than 80% of people will call and just talk to 1 agent before deciding to list their house. Another 10–15% might call 2 people, but still, majority of people are only going to talk to 1 or 2 people before they decide hire the real estate professional. So that means if you're not that number one person or slightly number two, you have very little chance of getting a phone call or seizing that opportunity. So this is about staying top of mind. This is what they mean by staying top of mind, because we just don't have the attention span with all the flood of information and things coming at us these days. Any thoughts or questions on that? There's an item in the chat. Okay, Neha, yes, we'll definitely get you a copy of MREA. I'll make a note of that. There's also a graph here. I don't think we're going to cover it, but let me go back to the book. It's on page 143. There's another graph here. Kind of gives an idea of how these models tie together. So this is the lead generation database model. Again, working on the left side, you have the METs. On the right-hand side, you have the habit METs. If you just take a look at the habit METs, right, this is the outer circle, the outer ring. Let's say we start with farm territories, geographic and demographic listed area. We get them into the contact database, and the first thing we want to put them through is the 12 direct. So they're going to get 12 touches over 12 months. From that, we're going to generate some form of new business. That new business is going to recycle back up over onto the MET side. Working through the MET side, the first thing we're going to do is 8x8 to build relationship. And then as we add them to the database, working through the database, the 33 touch is meant to keep in touch with them throughout the year. That results in not only repeat business, but also referral business. And again, from the referral business and the new business, they can both, all those new METs and new contacts get recycled back up through the 8x8 program through the contract management database. Now we have some other graphs. I'm not going to bring all that up today, but certainly with Command, it's the same idea, but now it's expanded upon that. Between the neighborhood nurtures, smart plans, other quarterly call reminders, there's a lot of automation that can be done now through Command to maximize all of this. So back to the 8x8. Any questions on 8x8? We'll touch on 33 here. So 33 touch, now that you've built a relationship with them in the 8x8, we want to stay in touch with them throughout the year. So 18 touches, again, a combination of different collateral, emails, mailings, personal letters, cards, drop-offs, Popeyes, things like that, just listed cards, all your just sold cards, all of those would be included in those 18 touches. There's additional thank you card, thinking of you cards, obviously throughout the year, holidays, the big holidays, Mother's cards, Father Day cards, and don't forget to make your quarterly calls. So my favorite smart plan is the quarterly call plan, reminds you to call them every 90 days. So that's 4 guaranteed touches a year that you're going to make with somebody. Is there anything on here that somebody does that's not listed? Is there a touch or a unique technique or something that anybody does with their client or the database that's not listed here or shown? I'll tell you, I think the personal notes, I think personal handwritten letters, cards are still maybe, and actually are back in vogue, I guess. They're very powerful. People tend to hang on to them longer than most of the other types of materials. So don't be afraid to go back and do the traditional postcards. You know, a great postcard, just listed, just sold, anything, those especially get people's attention, and they get saved. They get hung up on the refrigerator, and agents derive a lot of calls from those. So don't be afraid to go back into personal touch. I think electronically, you know, we can get overwhelmed with text and social media, and I think mixing it up is the right message here. That you want to have a mix of things, but again, continuously staying in touch with people. The 12 direct. So again, sort of working backwards here. The 12 direct is really for the haven't met portion of your database. It's 12 direct mail pieces mailed out annually. It is highly leveraged, meaning that it's lead generation to the masses, but it's also something that you can outsource. So if you haven't done before, you can reach out to Keller Title Agency. Keller Title Agency will help design, lay out the postcards, and actually do the mailings for you to the farm territories that you give them. So it takes a lot of work off your plate. You don't have to, create those cards and stamp everything yourself and mail them out. They'll do it for you at cost. But nevertheless, it's a leveraged mass lead generation opportunity, and still very effective. We're doing the same thing now through Facebook ads, right? So if you've been with Chris Norton and in his classes and you've learned how to do the Facebook ads, it's the same kind of idea, highly leveraged form of lead generation. And, looking at generating leads for less than $2 a lead, it's incredible. For telephone calls, still not going out of style. Drop-bys, they're not required for the 12 direct. So these are people you haven't met yet. You may not have their phone numbers and you may not know where they live, but you're targeting them. But telephone calls and drop-bys are not part of this. You'll hear it discussed throughout, especially now with Command as we look at the databases and the ability to convert people. In this example here, back in 2003, the study and the data showed them that for every 50 people you have in your database that you market to 12 times a year, you can reasonably expect one sale. Well, that's about 2%. So if you think about, the number of people in your database, if you applied the 12 direct to them, just the 12 direct consistently, you could generate a 2% return on that database. So 100 people in the database at 2% means 2 sales. So you can quickly do the math, and we'll look at some of these ratios here now to kind of think and keep in the back of your mind what it would take to actually generate the number of transactions that you need each year. Tying back into the economic model, how many contacts and leads do I really need? This example here is on pages 187 and 188. It's the later sections of MREA. But the main goal here is to look at the database and the return on the database, and you'll hear more of that conversation these days. Just the examples on the right here. So the goal is to net 320 sales per year. So at a 50-to-1 ratio, at a 2% on the database, you need 16,000 people in your database to generate 320 sales per year. And there's just a couple examples here. If you got, a certain number in your MET database, how many more would you have to make up in your haven't met database? And vice versa. It's usually a combination of both. Maybe a couple thousand on your METs and your and moving towards those inner circles, the allied resources, versus the larger volume of outside people that you haven't met yet. But you can take a look at your database today. Think about how many people in your database. A 2% ratio is I'd say it's just the minimum. It's just the basic. We're seeing higher rates of return through the databases now using the automation that we have through Command and other things. And social media as well. It's another channel and multiple channels for broadcasting, right? So we're seeing upwards of maybe a 6% return on databases, which is quite good. Some people have reported even high as 10%. That's pretty extreme. But again, it goes to the ability to systematize your lead generation models and processes. So start small, start with what you know, and just keep building and growing on it from there. Again, the 4 laws of lead generation. This was a trivia question at our monthly stakeholders meeting a couple months ago. The four laws are: build a database, feed it every day, communicate it in a systematic way, and service all the leads that come your way. I just wanted to share something else. Any questions on this part, on the ratios, conversions, or any of these 33 touch or 12 direct? Any ahas or observations having thought about this now? I wanted to share, there's a couple interesting graphs here. I have the figures separately from MREA that I can share. It's a table on page 150. It's not in the slide deck. This is an interesting study that they did where, we go back to the foundational models of leads, listings, and leverage. The idea of focusing on listings. Okay, this is specifically what this is about. Studies show that if an agent were to focus specifically on listings, on average, they will generate one buy side for every listing side. So in other words, if you focused on the listings, you would also have the buyers. The buyers would come with them naturally. And here you can kind of see on the scale on the left, the gross commission income, 40, 80, 150, 250. The 250 mark seems to be, there's obviously a relationship here all along, almost a 1-to-1 ratio, 4 to 6, 8 to 11, 15 to 16. At 250,000 GCI, it's a really nice target to aim for. If you could target 20 to generate 25 listings per year, you could close the equivalent buyer sides. So the idea is to create a lead generation system that could produce 25 listings. So it's 2 a month, right? Buyers obviously take a lot more time and effort. You're not going to be able to chase as many buyers, but focusing on the listings first, then you can pick up the buyers and work with them as well. The 250 mark is where the lines are pretty even. There's a little bit more discussion when you go up into some of the higher numbers there. You see at 750, it's flipping a little bit more, 64, 56. But just to keep in perspective, capping, when we talk about capping at the office, that GCI would be like around 70,000. So just to keep this all in perspective, 70,000 GCI, you would cap on both your royalty, your 3,000 royalty to KW, and you would also cap on the 21,000 to Princeton, to the local brokerage. So that would be around maybe 7 to 8 listings per year, and then picking up, let's say 1-to-1 number of buyer sides. So it's actually less than 1 listing a month, which I think is pretty achievable. So just to keep that in perspective, if you're just getting started, don't get overwhelmed by the higher end numbers, but stay focused on where you're at. Once you get to capping, then we can talk about doubling it. We can double it to 150, and you can reasonably double it every year if you wanted to with a systematic lead generation model. Any questions on this page? There's another graph here. I love this, and I have to share it with you. It's called the basic 14-step marketing plan for listings. And in my opinion, you could cross out the word listings and say this is a basic 14-step marketing plan for a real estate agent. Again, the top agents know that their #1 lead sources comes from marketing listings. #1 lead source, marketing listings. So if you actually were going to start building a brand and marketing yourself, these would be the items and ways to think about how to do that. And however you can incorporate yourself and your brand into these activities is going to build that market share, that mind share of people. When they think about who they would hire to sell their house, all they're going to know is you, because that's all they know you for having done. There's a great article in Inman where Ryan Serhine talks about building his brand. And what do you know him for? I only know him for one thing: $1 million listings. That's all I know Ryan for. Everything he does, all of his marketing, social media, all of his personal brand is built around how he markets his listings. So I think this is a great table here on page 151. Take a look at this. Go through and read it. I love this comment. There's a note at the bottom. I'm sorry, there's a chat here. Let me check the chat real quick. Okay, yes, Ryan Serhine's awesome. We already know that. That's why I brought his name up. Here's a great truth at the bottom here. Truth: the only real difference between agents is that some list houses and some market them. Are you a listing agent or a marketing agent? So right now we're talking about buyers markets versus sellers markets, and we say it's a seller's market right now. Well, really it's a lister's market. And this has further changed my mindset personally. It's not just a lister's market, but it's a marketing agent's market. So they're the ones. If you look at the numbers as much as Nick and I have, you'll notice that the top listing agents, their businesses have all continued to grow up, even in the competitive markets. Not that inventory was down, but just the increased demand on the buyer side, the availability of cash to borrow money and to buy property has just driven up the demand and the prices of houses. But those agents that market themselves around their listings have continued to take market share, and it's because of this. So again, focus on getting those listings. Just get your first one. I promise you, you get one, you will get a second one. So put a plan together, think about this strategically, think about how you can brand yourself, market yourself as you do those different things. Just look at every opportunity in the listing process as an opportunity to build your brand and awareness out there in the marketplace. And, you know, it's a great reason to call people. It's a great reason to touch them. Hey, I got a new house listed for sale. Do you know anybody that would be interested? So take a look at that on page 151. Just to bounce back to the slides, I think we've kind of reached the end here for today. If anybody has any questions, please let me know. Next week, we're going to be looking at the budget model, and we'll be going through that a little bit more. So any last comments, questions, observations? I think we've answered all the questions in the chat. Okay, cool. All right, well, thanks everybody for being here today. We'll wrap up here and I'll stop the recording. So thanks again for your participation.